Well, Happy New Year and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. My name is Mike Owens and I'm a human resources specialist with the Veterans Health Administration, as well as your host for our weekly segment, Talk About It Tuesday. If you're tuning in for the first time, I just want to let you know we're here every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. So feel free to grab a snack, grab a drink, and join us as we talk about careers here at VA. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time or you've been with us for almost the last 3 years, first of all, I want to say thank you. But second of all, we want you to be part of the conversation. So don't be shy. Feel free to leave any questions and comments in the comment section. As you know, our team and I, we like to go through those comments and questions throughout the day and throughout the week. And also, we take some time at the end of each broadcast to answer some of the questions. Obviously, we can't answer all because we will be here all day. And I know you guys got a lot of important work to do out there, so we don't want to stop you from that. But again, feel free to leave those questions in the comments. If they're not answered on the broadcast today, they'll be answered at some point throughout the day and throughout the week. And also, all of us, including me, we all know someone who's interested in working here at VA. So to help that process, we ask that you please share our broadcast. Again, please share this broadcast. We have some hashtags that are associated with this broadcast. One is hashtag work at VA. Again, you can use hashtag work at VA. And you can also use hashtag VA careers. So again, those hashtags that you want to place on this program when you share it is hashtag work at VA and hashtag VA careers. And so with that, we're going to go into our broadcast. So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, as I started the broadcast, I started with a Happy New Year. So first of all, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great transition through the holidays. I hope everyone was able to spend that time with some family and friends. And I hope that everyone was able to have a good experience the last couple of weeks. So with that being said, my question of the day is, if you have, I know there's some people that don't really believe in New Year's resolutions, but if you do, if you're one of those people that like to set yourself a set of resolutions at the beginning of the year, go ahead. If you want to share maybe one of your resolutions that you're looking forward to or that you want to accomplish this year. So again, if you want to share what your New Year's resolutions are with us and with the other folks that are watching here, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. And I'm excited to see what you guys' New Year's resolutions are going to be for this year. So with that being said, we're going to go again into our broadcast today. Today, we're going to talk about interview techniques and interview tips. The reason I want to do interview tips today was because last week or the week before last week was our cumulation, I guess. I can't, some words I just can't pronounce, but we had some of our best interview tips that we put into one broadcast last week. But the week before that, we talked about our HR Star program that's coming out. We gave you guys an update on that. Well, today, if you haven't applied for that HR Star internship and you're a recent grad, meaning you have a bachelor's degree plus 1 year graduate level studies, if you haven't applied for that internship yet, please do it. Today is the last day that it's open. It's going to close at midnight tonight. So again, if you are a recent graduate and you're interested in the human resources career here at VA, we have the Human Resources Star Program, HR Star Program, that's up on USA Jobs. It closes today, January 3rd, so please go and apply for it if you haven't yet. And it's a recent graduate position, so recent graduate clarification for this announcement is that you have to have a bachelor's degree plus 1 year graduate study. So if you have a master's degree, you're eligible for it, but you don't need to have a graduate degree as long as you have 1 year studies. And if you're not a veteran, that had to happen within the last 2 years. But if you are a veteran, within the last 6 years. So again, please go and apply for that internship because it does close today. But back to what I was saying is that I want to do interview tips because some of you watching, you're going to get interviews in the next couple of weeks. And for those who applied for the original HR Start under the original announcement back last summer, they're still hiring off of that first announcement. We had over 4,000 candidates to apply. So they're still pulling names today to hire people off of that first announcement. So if you did apply for the HR Star announcement back when it first opened last summer, don't fret. We're still going over that. We're still going through the candidates under that application, but we are also going to be pulling some candidates from this new recent graduate this new recent graduate application. So again, but I want to do that because I know some of you guys are going to get called for an interview. Some of you who are watching have already been called for an interview, and you may have had an interview already. So congratulations if you've been called for an interview, if you had your interview already. But I want to say congratulations ahead of time for those who may be who are possibly going to get called for an interview in the next few days, maybe the next few weeks, or maybe within the next month. So that's why I wanted to take today to talk about some interview tips on how to make yourself successful in an interview. As you guys know, that I am a human resources specialist with the Veterans Health Administration, and I am part of some interview panels. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys some things that I look for, things that I can recommend, because based on interviews that I've conducted. So the first thing I want to say when it comes to interviewing is be prepared. Always be prepared for your interview. Never go into your interview just thinking that you're going to wing it. Just always be prepared. I know you guys are saying, well, how can I prepare? I don't know what they're going to ask. If you go to Google and you type in the search engine performance-based interview questions for the VA, or you can even use the acronym PBI. So again, those are performance-based interview questions, or you can do PBI questions. Google that, and it'll give you a whole page full of questions that you can possibly be asked here at VA. Now, again, you don't know which one of those questions are going to be asked, but I would say just find 10 questions and get some index cards, write down your answers on those index cards, and use those when you're doing an interview. Again, it's always good to be prepared. And again, like I said, you don't know which questions they're going to ask out of those PBI questions, but just find 10 that you feel or that you're confident that they may ask, and just, write down the question, write down what your answer would be, and just kind of go over those in the days leading up to the interview. So again, always be prepared for the interview. The next thing I would do is when you're doing your interview, have a notebook and some pens. All right, because throughout your interview, you want to take down notes. Sometimes when the interviewer is asking you a question, you may want to write down the question. Sometimes writing down a question can help you prepare for the answer before you start talking. Be willing to take notes, because the personnel that are interviewing you, they may give you some information that you may need to know either for later in that interview or for a possible second interview. So just make sure you have pen and paper handy so you can write down some things, or write down some things that you may hear that you may use for later on in the interview. The next thing that I would also ask that you do is read the announcement. I know a lot of times when I was interviewing for positions here at the VA, I always print out a copy of the job announcement. I go to USA Jobs. There's a button you can click that says print this announcement. Print it and have it there. Highlight some things within the announcement that you can possibly bring up in some of your answers when you're answering the questions, or highlight some of the things that you may want to ask the interviewers about the actual position. But you want to be knowledgeable of the position, because you may get asked a question based on something that was in the announcement, and you don't want that to catch you off guard, especially since you have that information available to you, because the whole announcement's on USA Jobs or VA Careers, and you can easily print that out. So again, please, I ask, if you're applying for a job here at VA or VHA, please print out the job announcement and take notes, write some things down on that job announcement that you can either use in some of your answers, or something that you can use to ask a question when that interviewer asks, do you have any questions? So, and something else I wanted to say in being prepared, and I know I mentioned it briefly just a little bit earlier, is that buy you some index cards. Again, you can easily Google PBI questions. PBI stands for performance-based interview questions. If you go to Google and you put in the search engine PBI questions, you'll find a plethora of performance-based interview questions that are most likely to be asked on your interview. Again, get those index cards, and for each index card, write one question down and write the answer that you would most likely put for that question. So if you're asked that question, you can kind of pull up that index card during your interview, or if you rehearse it to yourself prior to your interview, when that question gets asked by the interviewer, that answer will pop up in your head because you've already rehearsed it. So again, get some index cards and please rehearse those questions and answers to yourself, and make sure you write them down so it doesn't sound like you're fumbling through your answer. You can kind of have a well rehearsed answer to give when you're asked that question. So please buy some index cards, write those questions down, and rehearse them to yourself. Or you can even role play. Get someone, whether it's a family member, a friend, someone that can sit there and ask you those questions so that you can get some practice answering them right off the cuff. All right. So on the day of the interview, now with most, and again, not every interview is the same, but all of the interviews that I've conducted have either been over the phone or through Skype or Microsoft Teams. So here at VA, depending on the nature of the position, sometimes if you're interviewing for a position at the local VA hospital, you may be asked to come to the actual hospital and interview with the HR personnel there. But if you are interviewing for, let's say you get the HR Star interview, if you get an interview for the HR Star internship, well, you guys know that is a virtual internship. So you're not going to be, throughout that 1 year, your internship, you're not going to be placed at a hospital or physically at a VA facility. You're going to be doing that internship virtually. So when it comes to the interview is going to be virtually. You're going to get an invite. You're going to log into Microsoft Teams. If you don't have access to Microsoft Teams, you're going to call in. It's going to be a phone interview. But I would say 90% of the time it's going to be a Microsoft. It's going to be a Microsoft Teams interview. So what you want to do is, first of all, even though it's on Microsoft Teams, you want to dress for the interview. So please dress for the interview. I know sometimes you feel like you're at home, you're interviewing, and you don't want to wear a suit or, some casual or real formal clothing. But please, every interview that I had with VA, I always made sure that I wore a suit. But anything that you find is more business style clothing, please wear it for your interview. You want to dress for success. So again, I know sometimes we do these interviews, and especially if they're over the phone, we're at home. Sometimes we may even be at work. But please, if you can, try to find some business attire and wear that to your interview. The next thing is if it is a phone interview or if it is a Microsoft Teams interview, please try to log into your interview 5 minutes early, at least 5 minutes. You don't want to log in right at the time of the interview because, again, you don't know if you're going to have any technical issues. If you give yourselves at least 5 to 10 minutes, and if there's some technical issues, you can always email your interviewers and say, hey, I'm having this issue, and they can walk you through it. But if you try to do that right at the time of your interview, then that's going to cause your interview to be delayed. And if it's a technical issue, none of the interviewers are going to be like, oh, you're not going to get the job for that. So please don't panic if you do. But just try to log in. I would say at least 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes is perfect timing. And then if you're on that early, then your interviewers will say, okay, this person is really prompt, and that can be, a start towards your interview. All right. The next thing is block all of the distractions. All right. Don't have your cell phones in the same room. If you have an Apple Watch, I would say don't wear the Apple Watch because it may still ding and it may still buzz while you're on your interview, and that can be distracting. That can kind of put you off your game if your phone or your watch is going off every 5 minutes or every couple of seconds. Put all of your devices on vibrate, so that way for a 30-minute interview, you're not getting distracted by different sounds. Obviously, there are things that can happen that sometimes out of our control, but everything that's within your control, I would say try to make sure that you minimize those distractions because interviews are already stressful because you really don't know what's going to happen during your interview. You're still trying to get a feel for the people that are interviewing you. But if you have all these distractions like cell phones, smart watches, anything like that, I would say make sure you take those off and kind of tuck those away until after your interview, if you can. The next thing I would say today at the interview is bring your sense of humor and smile. I always say that I think one of the reasons that I got the jobs that I've applied for wasn't because I was always the most knowledgeable person, but I did bring my sense of humor and I did bring a smile. Just be yourself. Learn how to loosen up during these interviews. And again, I understand some people hate interviews. Some people hate to be sitting in front of a group of people and ask questions because they feel like you're being more interrogated than you are interviewed. And I get that. I understand some people are just not comfortable with that, but try to do things that can help you feel more comfortable. And one of the things is crack a joke every so often, and you will understand how that will help kind of lighten the mood for your interview. So now during the interview, I would say just bring your confidence. I know we're nervous, and I know sometimes when we're nervous, it throws us off our game a little bit. But don't let the nervousness or the butterflies in your stomach throw you off so much that you bomb the interview. Just calm down, be confident, especially if it's for a position that you've held before, or it's some career field that you held before and you're very confident in that career field. Be confident. Don't be pompous and don't be arrogant, but just be confident. Show that, I'm confident that I'm the perfect person for this job. I'm confident enough to tell you that if you pick me, you won't be disappointed. I'm confident to try to show you through my interview that I am the best person for this vacancy. And if you show that confidence, that'll take you a long way with your interview. But the biggest thing that I would also remind you of, this can be a killer. If the interviewer asks you a question, make sure you answer the question. I've had some people who interviewed with us and we've asked them a question and they gave a great answer. They gave a great long-winded answer and they gave us a lot of background, but they didn't answer the specific question that was asked. So please, no matter how short the answer is and no matter how long the answer is, just make sure that before you're done that you answer the question that was asked to you. Because again, it doesn't matter how long, how much information you give us in that answer. If you didn't answer the exact question, that's going to count against you in the interview. So please listen to the question, let it process it. Make sure you understand what they're asking. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat the question. We're not going to give you points off if you ask us to repeat the question. Sometimes we need to hear it a second time to make sure that we accurately understand what you're asking us. But please make sure that you understand the question and please make sure you answer the question while you're talking. All right. And then finally, one of the last questions you're going to be asking in the interview is, do you have any questions? And I always try to tell candidates, or even on this program, I've said it plenty of times, do not just bypass that question. Don't say, oh no, I'm good. Thank you for allowing me to interview for this position. Make sure you write down some questions. It's okay to ask them, hey, what are you looking for in a candidate for this position? Or what are the day-to-day responsibilities of this position that you're hiring for? How will my, performance be measured during if I'm hired for this position? What's the organizational structure? One good question that someone asked in the interview that we had recently, they asked us, is this a position where someone has held, if the person that held it before me, were they there for a long time, or is this a position of high turnover? It's okay to ask that, it's okay to want to know, okay, is this position that I'm going to something that people just come and go every few months, or is it a position where the people who've held it before me had longevity in it? So it's okay to ask those questions, but I beg you, and I strongly suggest that you do not bypass when the interviewer asks you, do you have any questions? Please write down maybe 2 or 3 questions that you may want to ask specifically about the job and ask those questions. And I promise you, they'll answer those questions to the best of their ability, and you won't get dinged based off the questions that you ask under that in that segment of the interview. So again, that was just some things that I wanted to talk about, some interview tips I wanted to give you. If you just tuned in and you tuned in halfway through the broadcast, today I would just wanted to give everyone some interview tips. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I gave you guys an update on the Human Resources STAR internship, the HR STAR internships that we have open here at the VA, especially the announcement that we have open for recent graduates. That announcement closes today. So if you feel like you are eligible, you feel like you're qualified to join our Human Resources STAR program, our internship, please go and apply today. Now, this announcement is open to recent graduates. And for clarification, The recent graduates that they're looking for is someone who has a bachelor's degree plus at least 1 year of graduate studies. So if you have your bachelor's degree and you've at least done 1 year of graduate school within the last 2 years, you're eligible to apply under this announcement. And as I said earlier, some of you applied under announcement that came out back last summer. If you haven't been called yet, don't get frustrated. Don't fret. We're still calling people off that original announcement. We had over 4,000 people to apply. We haven't filled all 1,000 of those positions, so we're still doing that. So there's a chance that you can still get called. So that's why we decided to do interview questions for interview tips for today. Now, just another thing about the HR Star program. I know some of you had some questions. The HR Star program is a 1-year virtual internship. So during that 1 year, you will not have to report physically to any VA facility. You will get all of your training. Everything that's part of that internship for 1 year, you'll be doing virtually. You'll be given all your VA equipment. You'll be given everything that you need to be successful for that internship by the VA, but you'll be doing it virtually. Also, now, once the 1 year is up, I know we had some questions. Once the 1 year is up, you will be placed into an HR position across VA. So don't worry and say, okay, well, what happens after that 1 year? Do they just kick me loose and say, go find your own position? No, the VA will identify some positions for you. And after that 1 year, it may be another virtual position nationally with the VA, or you may be placed in an HR position that's at a VA hospital near where you're living. So all that's going to be talked about and hashed out as you complete the internship, but you must successfully complete the internship in order to be placed into an HR position once that 1 year is up. So the internship is paid. For the announcement that we had over the summer, I think that you're coming in as a GS9, and you can look up the GS pay scale on the OPM website. But for the recent grad announcement that just came out, that's closing today, you guys are going to start off as a GS7. GS7. Now, for both vacancies, you have promotion potential all the way up to GS12. So don't worry, you're not going to get stuck at GS9. You're not going to get stuck at GS7. You are going to have promotion potential potentially on a yearly basis up until you get to GS12. So just think about the long run. I know for some of you, it may be a turnoff because it's GS7 or GS9, but just know that each year you can potentially get promoted to the next grade up until you reach GS12. All right. So I know I talked a lot today. I talked normal. It's 23 after the hour right now. So let's see if we have any questions. All right. So let's see. I think I have a question from Nikki. Nikki is asking, first of all, Nikki, thank you for asking this question. Nikki is asking, what tips can you provide for someone that deals with anxiety issues, especially when it comes to job interview questions? So Nikki, thank you for that question. And I understand as I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, that a lot of people just naturally are not comfortable in front of people asking them questions. Because I understand it feels like an interrogation. You're kind of overthinking the process because you're like, man, I hope I don't sound crazy when I answer these questions. I hope that I'm giving them the answer that they really want. Nikki, my best advice to you is, if you know that you're being selected for an interview, the days leading up to the interview, again, buy you some index cards or buy you a notebook and go and Google PBI questions or performance-based interview questions. Write those questions down, write the answer that you would like to give for those questions, and just constantly rehearse it. That way, if you hear that question while you're being interviewed, you won't panic because you're like, okay, I'm familiar with this question. And again, you can even use the index card. You can put the index card in front of you during the interview. There's nothing wrong with having notes already out when you're interviewing, but I would say prepare yourself for those questions. Have someone rehearse those questions with you prior to the interview so that when you hear those questions, they sound familiar to you and that anxiety isn't totally built up to where you're panicking during the interview. So that's my best advice to you, and good luck to you if you are selected for an interview here with the VA. So let's see what Danielle is asking. First of all, Danielle, thank you for submitting this question. Danielle is asking, how do you make an interview more personable when you can't see the person interviewing? So again, Danielle is asking, how do you make an interview more personable when you can't see the person interviewing you? So let's just use the scenario. Danielle is probably asking, what if the interview is a over the phone interview? So you have all these voices, but you really can't see the people that you're. I would say, Danielle, just do what you would do when you're on the phone with your friends or family members or spouses. You make those conversations personable when you're talking to them. Now, obviously, you can't be too personable because the interview is still a professional setting. But I would say just be yourself. Crack a joke, crack a smile. Well, not crack a smile, but crack a joke to try to make them laugh and see how your interviewers. See how they respond to it, try to get a good feel for the room. It's like when you're talking to that person for the first time over the phone, you're trying different ways to kind of make that person feel comfortable and do that, but I would say, crack a smile, kind of show a little bit of your personality in the beginning. The interviews don't always start. You don't always log into the interview and the first thing you do is they ask a question. No, there's normally about 3 to 5 minutes of chit chat before you ask your first question. That way the interviewers can get a feeling for you. You can get a feeling for the interviews and for the interviewers. And I would say take those 3 to 5 minutes to kind of make yourself comfortable, to kind of show your personality, and to also get a feel for the people that are interviewing you. So again, don't worry when you first log into an interview, whether it's over the phone or whether it's on Microsoft Teams or Skype or video. Again, we're not going to just ask you the first question as soon as you log in. Say, hello, okay, you tell me the answer to this. No. There's always a 3 to 5 minute time for chit chat where you can kind of just have some small chit chat with your with the interview panel. And I would say take those 3 to 5 minutes to kind of fill them out, let them fill you out. But the way you do that is show a little bit of your personality. If you're a jokester, crack a joke or talk about something that just happened recently in news or sports or something like that. And, and just kind of just use those 3 to 5 minutes to your advantage. So, all right, let's see. I think I have time for one more. It looks like someone, I don't see a name attached to it, but it says, what are the most typical hardest interview performance-based questions? So I would say I can't really answer that because everyone's different. What may seem like a hard interview question for me may be different for someone else and may be different for someone after that. So again, that's just something that you have to decide for yourself when you're going through the performance-based interview questions prior to your interview. I know and you know what? Let's do that. I know you guys are watching, so I want you guys to answer this question. Those of you who've been part of an interview, what do you feel is your hardest interview question, or what do you feel is the interview question that you dislike the most? Go ahead and put that in the comment section. So instead of me answering this question, I'm gonna let those that are watching answer this question. So the question is, what is an interview question that you feel is the hardest for you to answer, or that if you've had multiple interviews here at the VA, what's a question that you've been asked on each of those interviews? And put that in the comment section. And that way, there wasn't a name attached to this question, but if this person that asked this question, they can go back to the comment section and get those answers for you guys. And I appreciate you guys for putting those questions in the interview. In the chat box. So with that, it's half an hour. We've been on for half an hour. So unfortunately, I don't have much time to go. So I just want to say again, if you are a recent grad, which means you're someone that has a bachelor's degree plus at least 1 year of graduate studies within the last 2 years. If you're not a veteran, or the last 6 years, if you are a veteran, we have the HR STAR internship that we have open. That announcement closes today. So go to VA Careers or USA Jobs and make sure that you go and apply for that job today, because I don't want you to miss out. It closes today. Today is January 3rd, and it closes today. So with that being said, I just want to tell everyone Happy New Year again. Leave those resolutions in the comment section. I can't wait to see them. Also, those most hated interview questions, make sure you leave those in the comment section so we can go through those today. So again, thank you for watching. This is the first broadcast of 2023. I'm happy to be with you for another year, and I know this is going to be a great year. So with that, thank you for watching, and we'll definitely see you on next Tuesday. Have a great day.